or red flag, like you're saying.
Call meeting to order.
Motion on the agenda. Or to approve the agenda.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hearing aids.
Approval of the minutes, December 20 or 26, 22.
I'll move to approve.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You approve. Public comment?
Yes, my name is Nick Bryan. I'm a fairly new project manager from full service engineering from Spring Green, Wisconsin. We're not very well known. We started in 1974 in the basement of Ed Kramer and Sons basement. We've got about 30 full employees. We haven't worked with Polk County in the past, recently at all. I know there's some work that's out there, and we'd love the opportunity to work with you guys. I spent the afternoon floating around the countryside, looking at some bridges and some roadways. Beautiful country up here. My family has a cabin just north here, so I don't want to take too much of your time. I just wanted to stop in and say hi and who I was and how you, what Westbrook can do for you. We're a small firm. We're not very well known, but we're a full service engineering firm, municipality, storm, sanitary, water, bridges, roads, you name it, we can do it. So with that, no one else has anything for me. I'm going to let you guys get back to what you got going on because you've got more important things to listen to me today.
Where's your main office?
Spring Green, Wisconsin, Sauk County. So we're in the southern part of Sauk County. Very southern.
Right.
Yep, that's right. Not far from our office, actually. So it's a nice area down there, but I like it better up there.
Well, we're glad to have you up here.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, everyone.
Any other public comment? Sheet of information from supervisors not seated. Update from Administrator Nevin.
Well, hi, thanks, everybody. Just a few things. I'll kind of fill you in what's happening with different facilities and so on. You may have noticed there's a new sign out in front of Polk County. It's a different kind of sign. It's more of a lighted from the inside sign. I don't think we have electricity to it yet. It came about and basically the sign was paid for by Northwood Tech. Their request was to have a better signage to let people know where Northwood Tech was. And since they're a good partner of ours, we agreed to do that. They gave us head billing on there. But the other thing I think it serves is, while we got a beautiful brick stone sign out here in the corner, if you talk to most people, they don't see that, or they don't notice it. And so we thought another sign there on 8 would make, or 64 would make sense. So I think it's going to benefit both Northwood and
64, where's that?
46.
Oh,
I'm a little dyslexic in the brain
you're
today.
kind of backwards.
Yeah. Also, as I mentioned at the board meeting, I'll say it here again publicly, the equestrian season is underway on the Stour. I've got from October 1st to, I believe it's November 15th, the day before, the Friday before hunting season for deer. Also, we are working, one of the things in our master plan when we were working with the DNR was that one of our goals was to work with outside groups and have input, participation. And we've reached out to many of the stakeholder groups that use the different trails. And we did reach out to the Friends of the Gandy, and we've been in discussions with them to have an MOU regarding the Gandy Dancer Trail. It is, it's one of those where it's just a friends agreement where we share information and we communicate. And our goal is the same, and that is to maintain and enhance that trail as much as possible. We know there are differences in how that may be differences in opinion on how the trail gets used, but we're designing it such that we can work together on the things we agree on. And if it ever gets to the point where we can't agree, then certainly we have an out to get out of the MOU. But it's encouraging that we are discussing the matter with them.
Where's Judge Black on the?
Judge Black.
on the court case?
Regard,
There was a hearing 2 weeks ago on Friday, and there's another hearing set for later on this month.
Were you in on the hearing or?
I did not listen in on the hearing, but I did speak with Matt Thome after the hearing, and I know that Bob and maybe some other folks from the county were listening in. It sounds like there was some frustration with the judge on how the DNR was responding to certain questions, but again, nothing got resolved, and it is now set for another hearing.
This month,
Yes, I can,
October,
yeah, if you give me a moment, I can find out exactly what date that is.
interesting. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I was gonna let you slide on this.
I wouldn't let that
where
happen.
is 64? There is 64.
No.
Oh,
way.
go.
Not from a guy like that.
Good afternoon, everyone. I got a few things for you. One is I handed out another agenda for the Highway Commissioners Association meeting there in Hayward. There's a typo on it. Instead of, it said Thursday, the 26th of October, it's actually Wednesday, the 26th of October. So just so you're aware.
I got,
What's that?
I got it. I got that
That's the
Wednesday.
new one.
Oh,
Yeah, was in your pack.
The other one in your packet has
Oh.
Thursday on it. So today I got a few things to go over projects with you and all that's good in public works these days. Right now, the playground equipment went in at D.D. Kennedy and Lotus Lake. You can see this is D.D. Kennedy on this side and Lotus Lake over there. That'll get this one will get mulch underneath it. And October 10th, this is formed up now and we'll have a rubber coating underneath it. So that's moving along and looking really nice. But roadway projects, County Road D was completed, signed. We actually did a gravel lift on this area down here to get it above the water. We were losing, in the springtime, we had water over the edge lines. So we did raise that approximately 3 feet in that area. And you can see the floating silt fence out here on that one. We crack sealed Highway 8 from 46 to Turtle Lake also for the state this past month. So projects have really much starting to come to an end. Trying to finish up what we can, build asphalt. Next slide. Bridge work, 270th Bridge up in McKinley, up in the corner up here. The abutments are poured on that now. The deck pouring for that one will be October 10th. They're pouring the deck on that one. That one's moving along very well. This other one here, this is McKinley also. These two pictures are the Church Road Bridge down in Alden. That was a mill and overlay. This area here was more of an aggressive deck repair. During the milling operation of milling off 1.5 inches, they did hook 19 pieces of rebar that had to be reinstalled once they hammered back through it. That was put on there. The deck's on there right now. Paving is supposed to be done Thursday for the approaches. And after that, the guardrail goes up. So hopefully in about a week, we'll have that bridge back open.
that'd be nice.
Yeah, it'll be a really nice bridge. Looks really nice down there. Coming up now, later on today, we're going to talk about budget, current budgets. Naturally, we've got some stuff running high with projects. The cost of things, we are tracking very well on all our budgets. Facilities, parks, recycling, we're still one in there. For the 2023 budget, they talked about having a skid steer and mulching head throughout the year. That is in the budget. D.D. Kennedy Walking Bridge, just center roof. Clam Falls Dam, we drove that dam last week with divers to check the sediment where the dam was going to be built on the south side of the road. The sediment was extra deep there. So now we're getting quotes on bringing in a drilling unit to see how deep the bedrock is. We can't put the bridge on the south side. We have to go back to its original location, possibly to rebuild the bridge, dam. The problem with that is if it goes in its original spot, we lose probably 2 feet of water on that. And also with maintenance, it'll only be controlled with gates again. So every time it rains, we'll have to run up there and open the gates and do that. Where we build it on the south side of the bridge, it'll do it on its own. So still pending on that one. Atlas Dam is in design. Next slide. Deferred maintenance, this has been something that's talked about a lot, funding challenges, pay me now, pay me later. The upper right-hand screen here, this was in the pavement preservation journal this fall. Talks about a highway and how it drops in its life cycle when you don't preserve it with crack seal, chip seals. This is nothing new, this slide that you've probably seen at conference. For every $1 deferred maintenance on roads and bridges, the additional 4 to 5 and when needed in future repairs. That's a lot. As a budget as a whole, as highway, we're looking good. I am utilizing as many programs as I can, from LRIP, SDP, Build Back Better bill, Smart Bill now. That's out for funding if we have projects that use smart technology on highways or autonomous cars. That one's open, TAP grants, et cetera. So we are using those funding as we need to. Next slide. Recycling center project. Ask their engineers to look at what can we do to make it compliant, safe, for bringing up the code building with the expansion. As you see here, that number came in at $3.2 million. You know, we dedicated 1.62 for that project. So we asked the engineers to go back and look at how we can do it cost. We need to expand the center that much. Next slide. What they came back with, we cut, this was the new area going to be built for an expanded tipping floor. If they trim that off by approximately 1/3 to 1/2, what will it do? Now, RRS, the recycling experts say, don't do that because you're going to lose space in the future. You know, I talked to Nick down the recycling center and how would that affect him? That gives us a lot more room right now than we have. So next slide. With trimming on the, there we go. Going back to that one now, cost comes back in at $2.2 million. Give us almost $900,000 doing it that way. Brings us a little closer to our 1.6, but this does not include the recycling equipment. There are grants out there for that that are very favorable that we're looking at, but this is what we're looking at. We're looking at more or less going forward with getting more information on this option B. That should suffice us to save that kind of money with that. Federal projects and bridges. We got 8 bridges in the federal project, 2 under construction right now, 70th and Church Road, 2 under design, that's County B and County K. County K, the state just reviewed 90% design. County B is approximately at 75%. We have 2 highways in there, County Road F and County Road E. 5 of these we're waiting on costs with that. Right now through 2026, that's $8.5 million in funding that we've secured. With that though, we have a 1.5 million share over the next 4 years to come to set. And the reason I schedule those out periodically is for our GTA funding. So we don't have a large hit on our GTAs that we program that out as we go. Next slide. 2023, one of the things we're doing is taking 2 FTEs from facility and just moving them to recycling. We'll recruit in January, fill 1 in April. Wait on the second one a little bit. We hope to receive increased revenue with that to cover those costs. We have 2 positions that are just a great adjustment. One of the other things Polk is working on is instead of hiring seasonals next year for parks, which we get seasonals, we only get them for like 10 weeks for their college kids. We have very limited time. Working with endeavors to help mow our parks and cover our bathrooms at 12 bathroom locations and 7 boat landings. That leaves our staff versus cutting and chasing grass around to do maintenance on the trails, stuff like that. So we're looking at that. Next slide. That's it for the presentation. A couple other projects. Woodley parking lot. We found 2 septic systems that were left from when the buildings were there originally. We had them pump 3,000 gallons out of one and about 1,500 out of the other. They'll be collapsed once we do the parking lot after October 17th. The Justice or Government Center project. Hopefully that'll be completed in 2023. Hopefully. The move dates for the next phase have been moved to October 24th for the office moves. In phase 2, we're waiting on doors. The AV in the boardroom will go in the last week of October. I hope to have furniture in there in mid-November. So there is a possibility you could be in that room in November. But maybe December. The boilers, we have no AC in the building. We currently have no heat in the building also. Boilers been cut out and moved. The new boilers went in October 3rd though. They're in place, not hooked up. It'll take a month to hook them up. So hope the weather holds out, but we do have, them working on a temporary heating plan for those. As Vince mentioned, we got horses on the Stour now. Apple River campsites are closed. They did vandalize our pay box down there. They cut it off. They cut it in half with a sawzall. Not sure how much money they got away with. I'm sure it was very minor. And that's really it on the projects and those things. So if there's no questions on the project, I'll move to Sterling Loop. In the Sterling Loop discussion, what?
County Road K on that other bridge that is that just that culvert there? Where you go to Big Lake Drive?
No, the bridge on K is the one on the other section, just to the west of Double T.
Oh, by that Dorado farm for that curve is?
Yeah, it's right on the curve at the bottom of the hill right there.
Okay,
What do you do with the old bridge?
That will be removed. The old bridge is on private property.
On that Clam Falls, on that north-south division there. What's your opinion that we can use that south?
The south would make it much easier for less maintenance, a better structure, and have a better elevation for the lake.
Yeah,
With that,
there's a pretty good chance of that, or?
we'll have to wait till the drillers get in there to see where bedrock is. Their probe when they go was only 6 feet long that they go into with the divers. That was the length of their probe. And their probe hit bedrock in 2 locations only. So once they go in there with a drill unit is gonna run us anywhere from right around $60,000-$70,000 for a unit in there to get that detailed for that project.
So what's the go, no go depth for bedrock there?
That's an engineering question. I don't know. If they don't hit bedrock, it's probably gonna be a no-go. If the soil don't match it. Then, Doug can elaborate on this, but the Sterling Loop, the question came up on the Sterling Loop, and that's the original loop up in Sterling. There used to be one-way traffic up there. It came to the county and the AD committee last month, I believe, on making that 2-way traffic. It was measured by staff and the club to make sure it had enough clearances around it. Has been signed, but the question was who makes the determination of that with that. So it is signed 2-way, but I had an action item on the agenda for you to act on that, to approve it being 2-way. Again, it is signed that way, and it was measured for the distance for that. It was a request from the club to go to move direction away.
It does have your blessing?
Yes,
Good enough for me.
How wide is it?
16 feet. We do have some trees we're gonna take out as a safety precaution, but they did measure out 16 feet in the qualifying distance as well.
You want some action on that?
Yes. Just the motion to approve the.
I'll make a motion.
Sterling Loop to, with,
I'll make a motion to proceed with the 2-way traffic.
motion made and second, those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You got it, or Mo?
All right, thank you.
Here, Polk, you're up.
Just a few updates. For 2022 budget, we're gonna be asking to carry over the 1.1 million we have for the microwave upgrade. Motorola is having supply issues and will not be able to start the project till spring. So I think that's more just a formality, push that forward. They are currently working on the Taylor's Falls Tower. That should be done by mid-November, hopefully. And again, we've waited a long time to get parts. We had pallet loads of parts showing up here and I didn't want to climb the tower to do a ribbon cutting when that's finally done, but I'm open to suggestions. So anyway, that is exciting to get that tower project done and that is moving forward. But that again struggled to get supply stuff for it. I mean, it's just the state of the world we're in. On the 2023 budget, our biggest request is for wage increases for staff, and I guess we'll be talking about this as we get closer to the other budget items, so I'll skip over some of that. We did get a new ATV this week. We had money left over from purchasing squad cars that we were able to get our ATV. And once I get it striped up, maybe I'll park it out, but we can take a look at it, but we did just pick it up yesterday. A really nice looking unit, bought it from a local dealer as well, because they were the cheapest bid. The old ATV, along with a couple other squads and a bunch of items will be going on the Wisconsin surplus auction website. So if you're a auction connoisseur and, you know, the old ATV it's a little bit older, but it's very low miles and still a nice unit. So if you know anybody looking for an ATV.
Is it a Polaris?
Yeah. Yep, I'm to bid that one way up or go on and bid it way up, so we get.
Is the new one a Polaris?
Yes. Yep. We're in the process of sergeant promotion for patrol. It was posted last Friday. So we'll be doing that. Mid-October, getting a sergeant position filled. The sergeant position was vacated by someone who had been approximately 8 years veteran in law enforcement here, who went on to another career opportunity outside of law enforcement. We did hire a new deputy last week, Deputy Scott Lidner. He comes from us from Marshall County, South Dakota. He's originally from the metro area, the West Metro. And he's obviously wanted to get closer to home, so we were lucky to get him. It's rare to find someone with experience, and Marshall County is a small county by population, similar to Polk County in size, geographically, but it is a population's about 8,000 compared to we're 45,000. So he's now in training. We also have 2 still in the academy that will graduate. I believe it's November. We look forward to that. We do have 3 positions in patrol. And again, our field training process is a long time. So even though that started, still a few months before he's actually out filling the spot. So that's always the hurdle with our position. Is, though we may hire, it's months before we get the result. A couple weeks ago, we had about a week-long search for a missing person in the northeast part of our county. And unfortunately, they did find the person deceased. But a lot of effort went into that search, including Johnstown Chair was out there walking with us. You know, I mean, this Mike Anderson, I don't know if you know him or not, but he's a go-getter, and he was part of our search and rescue efforts as well. So appreciate that when we get help like that. Apple River Fire, Turtle Lake Fire, the Wisconsin DNR. We just had all hands on deck for that. We did find the person in a very remote wooded area, and if you recall, that's the area that had the blowdown storm. So walking was a nightmare for the people that were literally walking, you know, 6 feet apart, trying to cover areas in the woods. Quite the deal. Unfortunately, had a bad finish, and that's another point is suicides are way up this year. Very concerning number of suicides we're seeing.
Got an idea how many?
I think we got to be close to 10.
Well, that's what costs the county so much money when we have to have it. That's obvious.
Oh, absolutely it does, but it's essential, and I know medical examiner Denny's is working with St. Croix County's medical examiner to try to get it set up where they can do some scans down there as well, but I'll let him talk about that. The suicides, you know, we were in a 4-year downward trend. We had in 2019 only 4, then in 2020 we had 7, and then in 2021 we had 7. So there were times when we had 19 to 20 in a year in my career here. So it was refreshing for the last 3 years to see a downward trend, but this year we're unfortunately going back up.
Where we at in fatalities?
We're at 4. We've had 4 fatalities, and 2 of those were motorcycle fatalities this year. So we're below average on that. Our state average unfortunately is 10. So we're below average, but I'm gonna.
Yeah.
knock on wood there.
Good, you know,
I did also this past month attend the Sheriff Ron Kramer's funeral in Eau Claire County. He passed away. And there was 68 of the 71 sheriff's offices represented there. So I did go represent our office at his funeral. Any questions? Nothing?
Just question your population of the county.
What do you think it is? Just check that. We just crested 45,000.
Yeah, I said 25.
No, I said 45.
Oh.
Yep.
Well, I had my wrong ear.
People in here, I guess.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we had a very good discussion today. And the highlight of the topics is the discussion in the near future, or I guess I wasn't clear on that, but working on year-round travel on the Sterling Trail. And part of the reasoning that I understood was there's like 5 different dates when they're open and when they're closed. It's too hard for recreational officer and the public, everybody to know what those dates are. So they're working on, they're going to discuss it for after deer season or possibly in the near future. If I said that right. And Mo already brought up tree removal on Sterling, where we just voted to have two-way traffic. There's also a discussion on increasing road signs out there on the trails for emergency personnel of all sorts, if they're needed out there so they can find their way. And then they're going to do some canopy cutting on the sawmill, repairing part of the trail. County will work on part of that and the clubs. And what, I think 2 culverts going in on the sawmill.
Getting repaired.
You know, just repaired. Okay, well, we get repaired. And then there is some questions on some new signage for this tower from the club for snowmobile riding. That will come in the near future. Waiting to see what that might say. But
Yeah, don't spend the money.
I'm sure they'll put them in anyway. Eventually. So that's about it for today.
No, that sawmill, that ain't our sheriff's.
What?
That sawmill, that ain't our sheriff's sawmill.
Yeah, it's just, it starts there.
You can always use the milk when you meet.
I told you, John, we don't know, we don't need people to know where that is.
You got a new one, didn't you?
That's a erector.
Oh,
Okay, so an update for CJCC. I can provide that. Melissa Fisher is out sick today. I'll be brief, and if you've got questions for CJCC, I'll bring them back there. My understanding is we've got some shifts going on with treatment court with some folks graduating, which is a great thing. Coming up here first of the month, which I guess is Friday, first Friday is when the graduations happen. I think we have 3 graduating. And there's some of the best people that have been in treatment court. They've got a lot of momentum. It really is wonderful to see people make it through this tough program. Whenever we have folks graduate, it means that our program shrinks a little bit. And then often what happens is there's a lot of folks that come into their stage 1 or stage 2, and that's when it's rough. Out of criminal justice system, their lives are tough. So we're going to try to build that program up, but there's always a little churn in the first few months when we bring new people on. We're looking at an administrative change for the CJCC where Melissa will take on, she's more or less been managing the 2 case managers, and we're going to try to make that official for budget year 23. Right now, the functional managers for the 2 case managers are, one is in behavioral health and one's in the DA's office. So we're looking at switching that around so that Melissa is the supervisor for those 2 individuals when it comes to doing things like timesheets and PTO. work load balancing. When it comes to understanding what's going on with behavioral health, we'll start a connection to behavioral health. When it comes on and what's going on with the criminal justice system, we'll still have a connection over to the DA's office. That's kind of the plan going into 23. My understanding is that funding is looking good for next year, and we may even see an increase that would allow us to help individuals that are coming out of the criminal justice system and looking for transitional housing. Not having a lot of dough to pay for that, so we make it a small grant that would assist with that. That's pretty much what I have. Were there any questions?
You say November 1st is graduation?
It is the first Friday of October, which would be this Friday. So not November.
What time?
Yeah,
They wanted to come?
the judge actually starts the proceedings during the meeting at 9 o'clock. And then it spills over to this room at about 10. So if you want to see the judge in action, you might want to come around 9:30, 9:45. Then there'll be cake and refreshments.
Any other questions? Oh boy, annual budget review.
Well, this is one where we would normally say, here's where we are in 2022 in terms of budget. As you know, it's sometimes difficult to do because so many things are still outstanding and we don't have what you call a good encumbrance system in place to monitor. We kind of keep track of it. But overall, I think this year we're anticipating to be on budget and not anticipating any issues. Mo mentioned that we are looking good in the highway area, so I'm confident we'll finish the year on budget.
Good news.
Could I provide just a little bit of detail on that? I'll try not to take up too much of your time. But this document is coming around is the current status of the income statements for the departments that report up to this committee. And then, so what you'll see, just to make Vince's point with numbers, if you look for each of these, you look at that far left column, it says 2022 actual. You'll see that in all cases, we're running a surplus. And that would be a wonderful situation if this were December 31st, but we've still got 3 months to go. So that's why it's a little challenging to provide any kind of conclusive information on where we're going to finish up. We actually won't really know when we finish up until right around March 1st of 2023. But this is sort of this is our running indicator of where we are. And if you want to do the math, you could look at the total outlay in terms of expense, and then look down at that net surplus and see, are we within 25 to 30% of that? That's the money we have to still to spend till the end of the year. So I think just don't want to take up too much of your time, but I'm not seeing anything in here that indicates that these departments are going to go over budget. Now, our encumbrance system is a little creepy, and I suppose we could be surprised. We'll let you know if that happens as soon as it does happen. I'd also like for you to just take a second and look at that far right column. We are right now, in terms of operating budgets for these departments, all at zero, which is where we want to be, with one exception. And there's a very straightforward explanation for that. So if you were to look through all these sheets, you see in that far lower right, there's a zero number. That means we're balanced. And then you'll get to about page about page 5, and we're not trying to hide the negative sign on you, but that is a negative sign. Why is that there? That's because this is that $3 million will be made up in fiscal 23 when we move money that was from the dams from 22 to 23. If not, we won't be. So we've got that. That's roughly the amount of money we'll have to spend on dams. It'll carry over from 22 to 23 as long as you approve a budget amendment to do that. So that's why that one's negative. Yes, sir.
Will our tower project have the same?
I'm sorry, Sheriff.
Oh, I'm sorry. Will our tower issue have the same?
Anything that is not spent that was meant to be spent 22 will wrap into a budget amendment for the board Consider yes. Okay, so I thought I'd take just a second and explain where we are with additional funding requests for the departments that are under your purview in the player. I'll put it on the screen now. I'll figure hopefully it won't be too small. I apologize. We got a lot of great printouts from our team and then I found a mistake in it. Didn't want to share some information that wasn't quite right. No, we have to make that super big and maybe we make it so big that there we're only looking at about row column A through G, if you don't mind. Yeah, that's still pretty small. Okay, keep going a little bit bigger. Maybe one more. Yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, let's go up to the top. Okay, so I think you heard some of this when the sheriff and when Mo were talking, but these are currently recommended additional funding requests from administration. So that means Vince and myself, along with Mo and Sheriff and Don, have looked at these. We think we've got the budget to cover these, or we're going to make a request that we use general fund dollars in 23 to cover them. Mo mentioned folks for the recycling center. He's going to do some switcheroonies to get people from facilities over there, but he's also got a request in for 2 additional positions. We figured out how to get that down to 1, possibly hiring in July. So that's a yes, at least recommended by the administrator. You've heard about the Kennedy Bridge before. We're bringing it back to you again as something we think needs to get done. We've got some pay increases for specific individuals. We're not going to tell you who they are unless you ask us in double secret. But we've got some, these are all folks that are doing more. They're taking on additional responsibility, and we think they should move up a step or a grade because of that. The sheriff's requested, so these are all, these in blue are law enforcement. We're still in blue. So the sheriff's requested generators. We're going to space that out and use the asset recovery fund to cover those. They're about $33,000 each. We'll get one in fiscal 23. As long as we don't see the prices jumping on those substantially, we'll continue with the plan to buy them in 24 and 25. If all of a sudden we see these things going nuts in terms of prices, we may come back to you and ask to spend that money sooner. Because it's in our asset recovery fund, we have some flexibility to do that. Need a new canine, so that's going to happen in 23. And I think the reason for not doing it this year was no training available. If I'm not, yeah. So I intended to do that all along. You'll go up to 1 more or 2 more rows there, Claire. That's perfect. Okay. So, and I'll let Vince and Don talk about this a little bit more, but right now we've got $265,000 budgeted for a mobile command center. So that's a recommendation from administration to the board to go ahead and move on that in fiscal 23. You'll remember that we had some discussion of a much higher price tag, but I think some really good work on the part of Don and others has given us some alternatives that we think are really credible that press that down by 2/3, which is your budget director. That's really great. We love when that happens. I don't know if this is the right time to talk about that, but if you want to, if there is interest in hearing what the options are, I'd step out of the way and let someone else do that.
We can talk briefly about it if you're interested, but I think the sheriff talked to Don about, let's look at this from a broad perspective to say, what are the various options as opposed to the brand new vehicle. And it starts with taking the current one that we have to say, is it repairable? Can we retool it, upgrade it, deck it out? And we found that we could do that at a very reasonable price, actually under the $200,000, but that gave us a little room to do some added things to it and make it nicer. Another option would be to do the same thing only with someone else's vehicle. In other words, somebody else has traded one in that's being retooled. We could purchase it. It's a little more expensive. And the next step we looked at was, what if we got one that we could trailer? And you could get not the vehicle, but the trailer part of it, which includes all the necessary equipment that would serve not only the sheriff's department, but also all of these would assist the community services division or anybody else who uses it. Of course, the challenge with that one is, in addition to the trailer, you'd also need a truck that could pull it, and you need to make sure you have people. I know the sheriff's department wouldn't have any issue, but in community services or someplace else, somebody who could drive that comfortably. And then finally, we looked at a downsized, brand new vehicle, and that was the one that we saw budgeted or estimated about $580,000. So we think, you know, and just and I'll still be meeting again with Don and Tanya and going over, making sure that we can include in any of these options what is needed by each of the groups. But we think we can do it at a much more reasonable price. And I think the sheriff, in fact, the sheriff said to me, he goes, we want to be conservative on this, but we do need one. We need something that can get us to those situations where we need them. And I agree with that. So that's what we're going to recommend.
So what does this dollar amount reflect? Does this reflect a specific option?
Well, right now, what's in there would be the option of taking our current vehicle and upgrading it, retooling. That also is a little extra room in there too, in case we decide to opt into some other equipment. That would also enable us to go with the purchase a currently used one too. But so anyway, we put there the low end 200,000, the high end 265. We feel comfortable with that number.
On a used one, there, like that black vehicle, you know, that we got from, where was it, Monticello? That was a county that, you know, Goodhue County, that was a county that had a lot of extra money and put that available for us. When you're talking about a good used one, something like that might come up.
Well, in fact, some of the manufacturers that we've talked to have used ones available. So the benefit of that is we could say, hey, we want that one and drive it up here. It's a little more expensive. Whereas in talking with Don, it may be that even our current existing one, it doesn't have many miles on it. So, you know, we can repair or replace the generator, do a few other things, put some new antennas on it and the equipment that's needed. And it wouldn't have to go in all at once, right? If I'm not mistaken, it wouldn't be, we send it in and it sits there for 9 months. But rather we could send it one place for a short while. And I think Don mentioned if in the event we needed it and it's being under repair, usually we have an agreement with another county that, you know, we could borrow theirs if needed.
When I brought this up at one of our state meetings, I think some smaller counties, we would get a lot more for our vehicle than what we thought we would.
Probably, well, yeah, and I don't know how much that is, but it would certainly have to still undertake a lot of repairs. And I just think if we took, and my general feeling is if we take the one we have, which has low miles, and upgrade it and deck it out, I think that comes out to be a reasonable price.
I'll try to be quick with the rest. So when it comes to parks, we've got step increase for an employee. And then we talked a little bit about the skid loader and some attachments. Now, this is an interesting one, and I want to commend Mo for thinking about this. So and his team, you know, we were scheduled to spend a lot of money just renting one of these things. And so to have it ourselves and be able to use it for not just parks, but possibly other uses sounds really good to me. And then in highway, we've got a step increase for another employee. I have to say, this is my first time working on budget with this group, and the sheriff's office and Mo's team have been really good at thinking about what the priorities are. The sheriff all along has been saying people are his priorities, and we were able to get to some places because of his ability to identify that as the core thing he wanted to do this year, where we might not have been able to go. And the same with Mo. He's been really good about reminding us that we've chronically been underfunded for deferred maintenance. And so this year we've been able to get him some resources that are showing up in the operating budget. You're not seeing them here, But for 2023, he'll have some additional resources to keep the stuff together that you guys have been wanting us to do all along in terms of facilities and parks and trails. So I just want to thank you both for really doing a great job of prioritizing the project. Unless you've got questions for me, that's my report for today.
That skid loader, would that be available like for parks and highway?
Yes.
Well, there, I'm sure you'd find more use for that than what you even thought.
We've been by one of them for 15 years.
Pretty much.
So,
We'll buy it in parks and then, when highway uses it, they'll rent it to, highway department. Back and forth.
Yep. Like
When
that.
will we get to the nuts and bolts of all these other pending projects? I mean, when will we be addressing?
Ending project.
Let's just say the report Mo gave for the recycling center. Okay, so
Yeah.
we can't half bake that project, obviously, so somewhere we need to hear from somebody. What are we gonna do to get through that, and where's the money gonna come
Right.
from?
Right now, we have in the budget the 1.62 million, which the board has said, let's allocate from the ARPA fund to go to that. The question will be, based on what we get back from the engineers saying, can we do it for less? The decision will be put forward, or we need to make the decision. Do we take more money out of our general fund to pay for the expanded version? Let's just say $3 million, time it's all said and done. That's another 1.4 million. Or does the board want to choose to go another route? So, 1.62 will get us something, clean it up, make it look nicer and do some things. But really, I think what they said now is we can go 2.2 with a somewhat expanded tipping floor, which will help. Or we may choose to go to the 3.2 and get the fully expanded tipping floor. So we still got to look at those numbers and decide. And of course, again, that might be on that menu for all of you, for the board. Once we go over my proposed budget, we come in balanced, then we'll say, of these things, how do you want, if you want to do them, are we going to pay for them with general fund? Are we going to borrow the money? Whatever we're going to do.
But right now on your balance, you're not looking for an increased levy. I mean,
Right.
we'll have some increases according to
Yeah,
sales tax and that, but what I meant was the final levy to the tax.
The plan is to come next month at the board meeting with a balanced budget, meaning here's our revenues and expenses. Well, we're not there yet, but then there'll be a menu item of things
Well, yeah.
to say, what else do we want to do? And that's what we've got some general fund for. But Don's,
Yeah, I would just add to that, we won't be increasing the levy to cover projects.
So it's important to people out there.
Anybody that's been to that recycling center knows the tipping floor is way too small now. So if we're gonna expand the program, and we only make it this much bigger.
when it
you
needs
know,
to be
I
this
think-
way.
Yeah. Yeah, the reason we're doing it is so nobody gets run over and you got room to work in there. Then when do we, how do we?
Right, and I think, the hope is the plan is we'll have an option saying, here's what we get for the 2.2 or the 1.6, probably the 2.2, 2.3 area. And we got to add in the equipment. Or does the board want to go for the large expansion and spend the 3.2 or whatever? And am I being fair in the way I phrased it, Mo? I'm not a recycling expert.
Right, the size is the right size. I mean, that's the decision coming up with the board on that, because your capacity the right size, but you're not short sighting yourself.
The engineers, and I listened in on the call he had with them, and they're just saying, we really think the full size is the way you ought to go. And that's 3.2 million. That's a lot of money. So, we only approved 1.6. Now we're going to double that. So we think that's up to the board should have a comment, you know, say.
That's a challenge to us. Do we have the vision?
Or do we have an alternative plan?
Seems to me that I remember that we said, here's this 1.62 and the other will.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't need to look it up. Don't worry, we'll have a lot of
My
more time.
computer's gonna die.
There'll be a
anyway.
lot of discussion.
All right. Anything else? Budget. Question. I think our work plan is in order. Somebody has something they feel we need to add? This would go to Vince and Leah, Jay and you. In that today in our meeting, the question came up. All of the members of the ATV UTV committee are in the Polk County Snowmobile and ATV Council. So they want to know who is their liaison and where they go now for questions with the county, because do they go to environmental services or do they go to safety and work? And Mo, in his discussion, felt it would come to this committee. So do we need to change our ad hoc name and include them so we can start into the future of the winter? You know, the snowmobile questions. And, you know, just keep working the way we are, but have include that group is what I'm asking.
We're saying change the,
Just, we have ATV, UTV right now, so we're trying to deal with just those issues.
and add snowmobile.
Yeah, just add snowmobile because like Danny Carlson said, he does a lot of the snowmobile project. And he needs to have, do I go to environmental services and Bob Casimirs here, do I go to Mo?
Okay.
And
That seems to make sense.
Mo would probably be the one.
So we can come with a revised, would that be rule of order?
So right now, our rules of order lists ATV, UTV.
Well, we did something when it was created.
Yeah.
Or you did.
Let me take a look, but we'll
Yeah.
put that on the agenda. We'll address it.
It was specific.
Just so that it's clear.
So it's clear of
Yeah.
what,
Because really, I mean, like, Chris's department is the, let's do it. Bob's department has some planning.
Yeah.
But now, you know, that's also shifted a bit here and there, so that makes sense.
Rod moved over for Ben from that side to this side. Or to the highways. They're working out of there.
That makes sense.
Good job, Doug.
Okay, put it on there. Anything else? Adjourn.
So move.
On favor?
A little less than an hour.